Today, the Austin Police Department released the 911 calls in the body cam from Sunday's West 6th Street shooting. 3 people were tragically taken from us. 13 more, make that 19 more, were injured. And a gunman who started in a vehicle with a handgun transitioned to foot with an AR-15. It's scary video. We have it at the end. You got to see what this guy did. He was taken down at 2:03 in the morning, but here's the big thing about this. That was only 4 minutes after the first call came in, the first 911 call. It was 57 seconds after the first unit arrived. And every other channel tonight probably is debating the motive, but we're here to deliver something different, something that none of them can do. We're going to take you inside the 911 dispatch center. We're going to break down what the call sounded like from the inside, and then we're going to show you what the body cam looks like from the command standpoint. John, let's just start from like 1:59 in the morning in Austin.
Was incredible. As the bars are closing down, police officers have a heavy presence downtown to 6th Street. It's essentially the downtown entertainment area. When our suspect decided to take out a pistol from his parked vehicle with hazard lights on and began opening fire in a patio outside a restaurant bar.
Let's take a look at what the police chief says.
2 911 calls, and as you can imagine, we received numerous calls, 911 calls, which were hard to listen to. And these are the 2 that we're going to be sharing today.
Get down, get down. No, get down. You guys.
Hello, this is Austin 911. Need police, fire, EMS.
It's not safe. No, go that way.
Hello?
I know, there's nothing you can do. Go behind there.
Hello, this is Austin 911.
You can try to help.
Hello, this is Austin 911.
Y'all, go and get down. Not safe. Y'all, go.
Hello?
You need to go that way and get down.
Hello, this is Austin 911.
There has been a shooting at Booker's on 6th Street. There are people dead over here. There have been multiple people shot. We need help right now.
Before we get into the operational breakdown, 3 people didn't go home that night. Those 3 people, Savitha Shan, she was 21 years old, Ryder Harrington, who was 19 years old, and Jorge Pedersen. He was 30 years old. He had just moved to Austin 2 weeks before that Sunday morning, that fateful Sunday morning. So we're going to do right by them tonight. We're going to try to understand exactly what happened. We're going to talk about that, and John's going to take you on the inside. So, John, what is it that you hear initially when that call is played?
These 2 calls come from the briefing that the chief gave earlier today. She said that these were just 2 phone calls that they received. With an incident like this, you're going to be receiving 911 calls from everybody. Everybody's going to be calling in. And it can be very difficult to know which calls to handle, which ones to stay on the line. As I'm hearing this, I'm hearing something that's definitely going to be related to this incident going on. If you're a 911 dispatcher, you're looking at the mapping information that's coming in as the phone call comes in, so you know it's part of this major incident you're having. And you're trying to glean passively any information that you can from what's going on. There's also always that one thing in the back of your mind that's like, maybe this is something completely different. The last thing I need is a major incident and something else, a second incident going on at the same location. But the caller eventually came on the line, said that there was shooting going on and that lots of people were hurt. Every 911 dispatcher in the center is now going to be working on this, getting resources to where they need to be, not just from 57 seconds away, but from all over the city. We need to start setting up perimeters, not only to contain suspects, but to create a safe area for staging of EMS and firefighters and other responders.
So check this out. John is an active 911 dispatcher. He's been doing it for 11 years. I'm Drew. I'm a retired cop. I did that for about 29 years. So that's what qualifies us to bring you this news and this information. And what John just described to you what it's like getting that call. But something that we've talked about in past episodes, John, I think you could probably hit it again because not many may remember it. But is there a surreal moment you have when this 911 call comes in?
Yeah, you lock in. when you're a 911 dispatcher, everyday emergencies for people are your bread and butter. It's what you do 40 hours a week. And it's very easy to get complacent, but it's also easy to take whenever the 911 phone line rings very lightly. Who knows what it's going to be? A badger in my window well, it's going to be an utter non-emergency. And so all of a sudden, when you hear that there's multiple people already shot, you kind of tense up, take half a deep breath, and then lock yourself in for a case that may define the next several years of your life and perhaps your entire career.
All right, so we're going to go into a quick moment of silence here before we do that. Just think about this. So John's taking that one 911 call. The person next to him is taking another 911 call for the same incident. They don't know yet. There's a couple seconds of overlap where they haven't put two and two together. So think about it. There's 2 weapons, 4 minutes, 19 people injured in that little span. Let's get back into the video though.
Hi, Buford on 6th Street, there was gunfire. The cops are here, but everybody...
Is anybody with you, Sean?
Yeah, nobody shot within me, but I heard like 6 gunshots from inside. Everybody ducked down on the bottom floor. It sounded like it was from the... we're just right outside. We're hiding between cars.
Okay.
We're behind you, bro. We didn't run...
You heard gunshots from inside?
Yes, there's cops running towards it, but just more would help out. There were 6 gunshots, and there was 3 more on the street beside Buford, towards the right, looking south. There was about 3 more. I think those were the cops fighting against it. There's also more sirens coming in.
Yes, we have a lot of help on the way, okay? Stay in a safe place. I need to go to answer another 911 call, okay?
Go for it. Thank you. We're in between. We're fine. We're in between cars. But answer another call, please.
Yeah, stay
we're all
hidden,
safe.
okay?
We're all safe.
All right.
We're all safe. Thank you.
John, that's a pretty poignant point that this kid's making. Like she's the dispatcher, the 911 operator, we should call her. The 911 professional is in this dilemma where she's got a ton of calls coming in. People don't understand that even in Austin, I don't know the size of the department. I'm going to guess conservatively 2,500 people, which means there's probably about 5 or 6 call takers, 911 call takers on at a time. It may be 2 or 3 emergency call takers, complete guess. Everybody is bombarded because if there are 19 shot, there are obviously more than 19 people there, right? And everybody is calling 911. Everybody's texting their loved ones. So what is it that, what is it telling you when you hear somebody whispering behind the car and you're having to process all this information and you see like the calls starting to stack up? What's your feeling and what do you get?
When you're 911 dispatching, you're taking a call. The best 911 dispatcher can listen to what he's hearing passively and actively and put himself in the shoes of the caller to understand what's going on. And if you put yourself in a situation where you can hear screaming in the background, shots in the background, you're getting the narrative about what's actually taking place, and now you're hearing whispering, you're transported visually in your mind to a scene where someone's in the street firing into the crowds of people that are in downtown Austin, and we have people curling up behind cars, and you can get an idea of the chaos that people don't even feel safe to run away, that they're pinned down. And it paints a picture of an active war zone in your mind.
So here's something that we don't give enough attention to because, John, I know the center that you work in is like in northwestern United States. And sometimes in rural areas, it's just one person. Maybe it's 2. And so, you might be the guy on the phone and you might be the guy on the radio at the same time. In bigger departments, like they're probably all sectioned off or cordoned off, and they each have their own district. So the call takers are centralized, and then each, radio channel has their own personnel, basically. So it's a lot of chaos going on. And that adds to the stress of the 911 dispatcher. But I don't think we give enough credit to the person that's on the radio enough. We always talk about the 911 calls, but what's your thought and theory on the stress that comes with having to deal with an incident like this on the radio?
Well, first, just to address, being in Tampa versus being somewhere northwest of there, everything scales. So you have more call takers in a city like Tampa, and you have fewer wherever I'm at. But you still only budget your staff for a typical night, not something that's going to be a critical incident. So whether you have 2 where I live or you have 9 where you live, if 10 people are calling 911, we're both going to be equally overwhelmed. And there's a point where, as a 911 dispatcher call taker, if you're doing both roles, you may have to stop answering those 911 calls and start getting on the radio, because you can gather all kinds of information, intelligence, critical, get a description of the subject, what kind of weapon he has, what kind of vehicle he's in. But none of that matters if we can't start getting it out to the field units. And that's why you have usually one person who's designated on the radio. They're going to read notes from all the other call takers. Sometimes they'll even be listening to what the other call takers are saying, and they start putting it out in meaningful ways on the radio for police officers to respond. The police officers responding are not going to be looking at their mobile data terminals. You know, if anyone's ever been pulled over by a police officer before and sat in the car, they're looking at the little laptop they have mounted up there on the passenger side. They don't have time to do that. They're driving lights and sirens to the scene, and they need to be given good information, and they need to be able to have that information be clear, concise, and frankly simple, because their hearts are pounding. They're about to unholster their weapon, perhaps get rifles out of the back of their truck and start looking for this guy. And they need to know what to look for. And this is where we get into the fog of war right away, with witnesses calling in, giving conflicting bad information. So often people who are upset forget what location they're at. What's the difference between eastbound and westbound? This kind of information can get muddled very quickly, and it can leave police officers confused. But good dispatchers can sort through that. They can sense when they're getting bad information. They can ask clarifying questions and take that extra half second to make sure that the intel they're gathering and putting out is correct. And it's frustrating, because what you'll hear from people in the industry is that AI or that we don't need dispatchers to do this, or that their jobs aren't as critical. But when it comes to managing an incident like this, only a human mind can decipher what's real, what's not, and how to get that out.
So with that said, let's listen to what comes in on the radio side. John, can you handle that part?
Sure.
I want to thank, again, the officers that engaged him, the officers that responded, that started putting tourniquets and rendering first aid immediately to victims. As you can see, this was a chaotic scene that was overwhelming for many, and it's overwhelming to watch it. I walk into our PIO office and people are in tears, and they're listening to these things, and it is hard and it's challenging. This devastation just doesn't affect the community, and my goodness, I don't think any of us can imagine what these families are going through right now, the suffering that they are dealing with, but our hearts are with them. I want to thank the mayor. Thank you.
That's Chief Lisa Davis. She came from Cincinnati, and she's now the chief in Austin. She did an amazing job, as far as I can tell, with this incident. There's a lot more to it that we're not covering. We're just trying to bring you the operational part of it. But John, before we get into the radio part, she acknowledged, like, you know, she's got other civilians on her staff. The PIO is Public Information Office, and that's where the people that put the press conferences together, or, you know, get information out to the public work. And they actually had to listen to the 911 calls that you listen to on a nightly basis. And when generally when those civilians hear that, it brings it home, which is another reason why we try to do that. What is your kind of, I don't know, take on the accumulation of having to deal with those? Like, are you numb to it? Do you have some kind of compassion fatigue, or do you just come in fresh as a daisy every day?
I one time was got given a pat on the back by the chief of police in a town that I dispatched for, because she listened to a call that I handled. I was calm, professional, and handled it without getting very upset. She was very impressed by that. And I didn't have the heart to say, well, I handle things like this every single day. This call was high stress for me, but it wasn't unusual. And a common 911 dispatcher who spent any amount of time in the job will know that, like I said, those emergencies are our everyday bread and butter. And that's why when you dial 911, you've got to lock in and trust that person who's taking your call to guide you through that process, to ask you questions. And then you need to answer them, because they're asking those questions in a certain order and gathering that information in a prioritized way. And it's important that you answer those questions rather than simply spilling your beans and telling everything that happened all at once, even though emotionally that you're tempted to do that. And it's very common, and I understand why. But dispatchers do get numb to it, and we need to be a little bit. I've given the analogy before that a lifeguard saves your life by giving you a life preserver, not by going out there and drowning with you. So when you're having the worst day of your life, you want someone that's cool, collected, someone that's been through this before, and someone who can see you through there to the other side. You might not get the emotional support that you're looking for in those traumatic moments, but what are you going to get from a few minutes on the phone line with someone anyway? Hopefully you'll get better care when the situation is over. Drew?
Excellent point, my friend. Folks, be prepared for what you're about to hear on the radio. And if this, is kind of stressful for you, imagine what John goes through, 1, and 2, buckle your seatbelts, because we haven't even scratched the surface with the body cam and what the assailant did. It's coming up right now.
They're advising that the shooter vehicle is going to be a Chevy Tahoe. They are saying somebody was shot. George 301's going 23. Units hold the air. They heard 6 or 7 gunshots.
We have a direction of travel of suspect.
Checking.
George 301, I see a black Chevy Tahoe. It's going to be
DR 403. I do have one victim. Looks like he's possibly shot at. We're right here on the side street. It's going to be a male.
Clear, one shot.
DR 403. Also be advised, we probably have about 6 or 8 people that have actually been shot.
Clear.
RTF2, we're going 23 with the medics. Is it clear to bring them in?
George 301 is going to need to be a citywide ONA.
Clear, citywide ONA.
We're calling as many officers as we can get. We have a lot of people running out. We need to make this a crime scene as soon as we can.
Clear, citywide ONA has been started.
Unknown on where the suspect went. All we have is a white SUV.
All right, I'm going to hold it right here. This is the bridge between you and me, John. This is you on the radio. This is me on the street trying to make decisions, trying to direct traffic, so to speak. And this is you up in your communication center doing the same thing, directing traffic. Because what doesn't the public see that you're doing while that's going on?
We're gathering information from all kinds of sources, and we can see where the police officers are at. We're sort of the air traffic control for an emergency response like this. And we had a police officer come on the radio, say he came on scene and he identified a white Tahoe as the suspect vehicle. How does that conflict with other reports that we may have taken from 911 callers saying that it was a black Cadillac? Certainly those vehicles couldn't be more different. And like I said, when you have police officers charging into a scene, you don't want a black Cadillac with a suspect in it to drive past you while you're looking for a white Tahoe. So you try to suss out what is the correct information. What have you been told? You're generally going to rely on field responders. If they're there on scene, you don't know if maybe they even saw the suspect. So you try not to argue, but you have to remind them of things. Sometimes they get so locked in that they get tunnel vision. What's important? Well, getting in there as fast as possible. But what else is important? Making sure that you have 6th Street clear so that other people behind you have a way of getting into the area, specifically EMS. If we have people that are down and shot, ambulances need to get in there. And sometimes when you only have one police officer on scene, or when you have no one on scene, a dispatcher can almost take charge of a situation, reminding people of what needs to be done. This is something that I've done before. This dispatcher on the radio talking about keeping 6th Street clear, as you're about to hear, remind me a lot of the Ella French case in Chicago, where a dispatcher became very active on the radio, letting police officers know that they needed to pave the way for a police car with an injured police officer in it, directing them to go to which hospital could handle the kind of trauma that Officer French had sustained, which directions to go, which exits to block off. I myself have done that before in a critical car accident on the interstate. I started giving instructions to a trooper, multiple state troopers inbound. We needed to shut down the interstate so that we could land a helicopter out there. And I was making decisions on my own. Are we going to block down northbound or southbound? What makes the most sense? And when you're in the seat, you make those decisions until essentially someone with a better handle on the situation, a field responder, an incident commander, can make those decisions for you. And that's another reason why 911 dispatchers are critical and often overlooked in our role in being able to manage the first approach in intelligence gathering to a critical situation like this.
Yeah, those ambulances don't just appear.
George 505, I'll be in command. RTF1 is 23.
Clear.
George 709, I'm in command.
George
RTF2, I have command. We're inside Buford. We have at least one victim making patient contact.
Responding units, we need you guys to clear 6th Street. We need EMS to have a route of ingress.
George 505, AXP is going to be 6 in Rio, 6 in Rio.
Rank 302 to responding units. I cannot stress this enough. You guys need to keep 6th Street clear. Shut it down if you have to.
Tiger 780 on George. Just to let y'all know, you pretty much got the city coming to you. Do you want them to stage at the main and dispatch from there? What do you guys need?
709, there are additional shots being fired.
Clear additional shots being fired.
All right, something that other guy that just came on didn't think about. Now, what he's saying is, hey, the whole cavalry's coming, so everyone just, don't worry about that. Do we want to set up somewhere and just kind of like have a little mini headquarters and kind of fare it out from there? Yeah, like a command center. And
Right.
you heard him
Those
passing.
decisions are impossible for you to make over the sound of gunfire. You're not thinking logistics. You're not thinking, where is your car parked at this moment? Drew, the police officer, is getting out of his car and taking his gun or his rifle with him and running towards gunfire. And as we'll see when we watch the body cam, that's exactly what they do. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the police officers who are completely revved up to get in there and run towards danger and stop that gunfire and save lives, and also coordinating a massive response like
Yes.
a mass casualty incident where you're going to be pulling in ambulances possibly from mutual aid districts from all around the area, depending on how many people are down. I don't know how many ambulances a city like Austin runs, but if you have an active shooter taking people out, like is in the worst nightmares of every law enforcement agency in this country, you have no idea what you might need to pull in and where you're going to stage them. And truthfully, the best 911 dispatchers and other people are going to be already thinking about that. Where can we set up a CP? How can we organize this well? Not just because we don't want to be looking back at this 6 months or a year from now saying, what did Austin PD do wrong and what could we have done better? But because you want to make sure that you're bringing all of your training and all your experience and you're rising to that occasion and bringing your training with you and making sure that you can make this as logistically as foolproof as possible. But the police officers right now are full of adrenaline just hearing that gunfire. So it's a mix of both things happening.
I think it's important for people to realize as well that in a bigger area, like I described a minute ago, where there's multiple radio channels, sometimes you're switching over from a different district. You have no clue what's going on. So you don't know that the shooter's still running around. You don't know, but you hear all this activity and you hear all these people trying to, keep 6th Street clear and get medical in there. It might be a flawed decision or a flawed analysis that you just like assume that everything's stable and you don't even realize that the shooter's not even located yet.
Yeah, there's no point in making sure that you have 6th Street clear for ambulances to ingress when you would not send ambulances into a hot zone anyway. So I applaud them. This is not criticism at all because he's thinking ahead. But we need to make sure that the suspect has been neutralized, either taken out or arrested before we could send in EMS. And that's what makes these situations so scary, especially as a 911 dispatcher. You think about people shot, people down on the ground. You cannot rest and relax. You cannot exhale until you know that you have a paramedic tending to them. And even then, but you can't put a paramedic next to them as long as those rounds keep going off.
Oh, I can tell you that's the longest 2 minutes and 20 seconds of your life. Like so, and what I'm saying is like when you're standing over like a car crash victim or like I'm a cop, I mean, I know how to protect you, but I don't know. I know basic CPR and believe me, we've come a long way in this law enforcement profession in administering CPR. I just want to make this one quick point before. What's that?
And tourniquets for a situation like this. You could administer CPR, but trauma and bleeding control is going to be something that police officers are doing as well.
Yeah, I just want to make this one quick point before we get back to the exciting stuff and not me talking all the time. But 6th Street is not, clearing 6th Street is not a suggestion, just like John said a second ago. That's a staging decision. It's made in real time. Somebody had the foresight to say it. The scene is still active. Like they still don't know where the shooter is. And as we're about to see in a minute or two, the shooter emerged on 6th. And just like John told you a second ago, you're not going to send EMS or ambulances into a hot zone. So getting back to what I was saying, it's just kind of like you're standing over this person, no matter if you're tending to them or just encouraging them, come on, buddy, hang in there, or you're doing CPR or giving them rescue breaths or whatever. It's the longest, and if they can't even get in there because it's not a secure scene yet, I'm telling you, just time slows down.
302, that was to the west. Those shots were on the on West Avenue. 302, they're saying it's an AR-15. AR-15 or west. He's on 6th Street.
On 5th Street.
Shot fire! The hospital's down!
Okay. John, first of all, can you talk a little bit about recognizing people's voices?
When these people are your friends, the cops, more or less, you're not necessarily buddy with them, but you're collegiate with them, and you get to the point where you can tell who's talking, not from their call sign or from their voice. And you get to a point where you hear someone talk every day, and all of a sudden you're hearing them talk like this. Like I said, you paint a picture in your mind, and now it becomes even more personal. It's scary for you because you're hearing someone that you talk to every day, someone that probably brought you donuts on dispatcher day. And now you can hear that he's fighting for his life out there, whether emotionally or literally. And it brings a level of horror into the dispatch center. Is this going to be a tragic day for us? Are we going to be able to stop this guy and save our police officers in time? Or are we going to need one more ambulance for our friend? It's one of the scariest situations that you can be in.
Sure. And then you're hearing words like AR-15, which is like in a split second, every cop there and every dispatcher is probably processing like, oh, he sees it.
Yeah.
Which is even scarier, right?
He's in sight. If you're in sight, that means you're in weapons range of a rifle. And I know that AR-15 is something that gets a lot of people activated because of the politics that surround guns. But really, any kind of rifle really ups the danger for our responders, because now we're talking about high velocity rounds that can go through cars. You're going to be less likely to get cover, and he's going to be able to take meaningful shots at you from farther away. It's a scary situation, and it also lends to the state of mind of the shooter. This is somebody that prepared for this. This is not somebody had a sudden beef with a gang member or something going on. It lends a style of planning that makes you think that the casualties, the body count at the end is going to be much higher, Drew.
So 6 octaves higher, you hear a more rapid speech tone. It's your buddy. You know your buddy doesn't normally sound like that. Then you start hearing gunshots, and that's even worse.
Shots fired, one down, 6 on West Ave. Black male, light sweater, light camo. I'm on the suspect. Move to now. I'm on the street. And left.
Well, here's the problem with all that coming out at the same time. And John alluded to it very early on in the radio traffic. It's kind of this fog of war. The initial broadcast was that it was a white Chevy Tahoe. It turned out to be a black Cadillac Escalade. And there are no two polar opposites. I mean, I guess, they're probably close, like they're both SUVs, but one's black, one's white. So if you're processing, like as you're running with a rifle in your hand or a handgun out because there's a shooter, you're looking for this white Tahoe. And the black Escalade probably could drive right by you, just like, the gorilla in that video, and you may never see it. So the reality is that this misidentified vehicle, it's going to propagate through the whole, it could delay everything. This is the importance of John as the 911 dispatcher ferreting the correct information, and he has no way of knowing what's correct. So if he's got 3 911 calls stacking up, the first person said it's a white Tahoe, but the next 2 people might be looking right at the black Escalade, and one of them might be the guy in the black Escalade.
Yeah,
so
I have no way of telling just from someone's voice which one is a better source of information. I just have to take down everything I can and see what gels with every other caller that I'm getting. And it's sort of the upside of having multiple 911 callers, is that if you can gather a few key pieces of information, start comparing, the extraneous stuff starts falling by the wayside pretty quickly. But when you have a field unit, when you have a police officer there saying that, he sees a white Tahoe, Man, you try not to argue with the cops on the radio.
Right. But it's all in real time too. You're both processing everything in real time. So it's tough. I think we go into the body cam here.
Video is our halo surveillance. That is our high activity location observation. And this is throughout downtown, at least that 6th Street area.
Okay, what a blessing this is. High activity location. What did she call it? High activity. She just said it.
Low open.
Yeah, LO. So it's
location observation, I'm guessing.
There you go. Location observation. And so what this is that when there's a high concentration of people, you're starting to see the emergence of this a lot in modern law enforcement, using drones, using cameras, using plate readers. Some have instituted full-on real-time crime centers that employ people that do the job of kind of watching things. So they're not just doing latent investigations, they're watching in real time. It's not even the Big Brother stuff because there's too much going on. But when something like this hits on 6th in Austin, does this come in handy? And you can see in the red circle here, they even captured the moment. So we'll just give it a second to develop. But it's this is where the gap is closer between what dispatch is actually hearing and transmitting and what's actually happening in front of you. So we'll talk more about that in a second. You can see that red circle there, though. I mean, there's just cars everywhere. You can see lights flashing, and it's confusing. And then you can see the point when people realize that there's shooting going on because they're all ducking down, and they're all kind of running, which is scary. I mean, it's just like, think about this. Think about your most concentrated area in your city or town or village or whatever, and you just start hearing these multiple gunshots because it was multiple gunshots. If you haven't seen it on social media, I mean, there's a guy that captured the whole thing from right across the street. So people are ducking behind cars. People are calling 911, and the shooter just kind of pops out of nowhere. You can see the flashlight of the officer there. That's an officer that's right behind the white pickup truck, if you haven't figured that out yet. He's taking cover because he's being told, that the guy is close on 6th. There's another officer that's coming up with them, and it's all communication between those two. You see those flashlights there. What you don't see, and I don't know if I captured the right body camera angle to do it, or the right officer's body camera. Look, there's more officers right there. You can see that a lot of people hunkered down in a doorway, like in a few doorways. Like they did the right thing. It's like this run, fight, hide, and they were hiding, like literally having to hide. So in between cars, which is a dangerous place to be, by the way. But this is essentially where the 4 minutes took place. It was from escalation to takedown. She's going to explain exactly what route he took, but it was just, look at that, just like a 3 block by 1 block
Investigation
radius.
revealed that a black Cadillac SUV was traveling southbound on Rio Grande Street when it pulled alongside Buford's, and the driver of this vehicle began shooting a semi-automatic handgun into the crowd of people that were standing outside of the bar. Several individuals were struck. The vehicle then continued westbound on West 6th and parked near the intersection of West 6th Street and Wood. The suspect then exited the vehicle armed with an AR-15 rifle. The suspect fired at a pedestrian, striking them, then walked back toward the bar. As additional officers arrived, they were directed by the suspect's location by brave people that were caught in this nightmare, and they worked to move bystanders to safety and establish a secure perimeter.
Caught in this nightmare is like the best characterization. That's just, it's dead on. It hits the nail on the head.
At 2:03, 3 officers located the suspect near the intersection of West 6th and West Avenue. The suspect discharged his firearm at the direction of the officers. The 3 officers discharged their firearms, striking him multiple times. Officers approached the suspect, took him into custody, requested medical assistance. The suspect was later pronounced deceased at the scene.
57 seconds to contact. Now, this is like, We've had our discussions on Uvalde. We can discuss them at any point. I'd love to do it. There's the Christian school in Tennessee, where they rushed right in and they went to the sound of gunfire and they ended up, taking action on the person that was doing the shooting. But the officers running directly toward the active gunfire, based on a bunch of bystanders telling them where to go, should tell you everything about what is in a cop's mind, whether it's Uvalde, whether it's the Christian school in Nashville, or any other active shooter scenario. You don't understand. You're going towards that gunfire, and there are barriers that might prevent you from getting to the shooter, to the gunman, but that's what cops do. It's in your nature. It's what we're trained to do. So we're going to look at,
where is it?
This is the first officer's body cam. He's already got his gun out. You can see by his shadow. He's advancing towards the street and he is yelling, "Where is he? Where is he?" And you can see a guy, he's already hiding behind a car and he's pointing. He's telling him exactly where to go. And that guy is not going in the opposite direction. He's going the exact direction that guy's telling him to.
Where is it? Over there.
Somebody is yelling sixth, 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 sixth. And the other one's yelling over there, over there, over there, over there. So he's got a good idea. This is a very dangerous situation for this officer, and I'll tell you why in a second.
He's on 6th Street. Where is it? Where is it?
So this is the guy that was on the radio, because you're going to hear some of the familiar language.
Who shot? Shots fired. The suspect is down.
John, did you notice the acceleration when the shots started ringing out?
Yeah, that's one of the advantages and major downsides of this incident. We were here quibbling, talking about, is this a white vehicle? Is this a black vehicle? This officer is running towards the sound of gunfire, and people can be hiding. People can be ignoring his inquiries about where this guy's at. However, the suspect himself is, by shooting off multiple rounds, giving himself away. Yes, I saw the police officer's pace speed up because he's trying to get in range and get it to a good shot with his own rifle so that he could take this guy out perhaps before he gets noticed. The police officer not firing off many rounds is all part of the approach. This guy's going nuts. He's firing rounds all around. His hearing's probably disabled. He's probably got some sort of tunnel vision going on, trying to accomplish whatever his mission is. But this police officer can hear it. He can run towards it and hopefully line up both sights on that weapon in order to end this quickly.
Yeah, it's called auditory exclusion. You tend to get into a warp. It's a known phenomenon in police shootings, in traumatic shootings. So it could be in war, it could be in a robbery, you could be the victim or whatever, but you just start, your world just starts caving in very narrowly, and you may not hear or see or process everything, but you're going to fall back to your lowest level of training. And this guy's lowest level of training was get on the radio, communicate, keep that gun in front of you, advance towards the gunfire, and take the gunman out. And he did a phenomenal job. Just total bravery.
Stop moving! Stop moving! No!
So that's the gunman right there. You could see the gun laying next to him, and he's rolling around. And so the guy's giving him commands, the officer's giving him commands to stop moving because he doesn't want him to roll over and grab that gun.
Move! Don't move! I'm on the suspect. Move here now. I'm on the 6th and West.
I kind of thought that there was a crossfire situation. I'm a little unclear on the angles. It looked to me like he came from one direction and the other two officers were coming from the other direction. We're going to see the other officer's body cam in a second. Even more scary, we're going to actually see footage of what the shooter saw, because that was captured by a bystander. So 3 responding APD officers, 1 mobile suspect armed with an AR-15. The tactical resolution achieved precisely. at 2:03 a.m., which was, again, 4 minutes. So 57 seconds upon arrival, they were already engaged.
On the ground! Where is it? Where is it? Over there, over there. He's on 6th Street. Where is it? Where is it? Who shot? Shots fired! Shots fired! The suspect is down! Stop moving! Stop moving! Don't move! Don't move!
Okay, so this is me making a tactical error, even when things are the most calm, because I uploaded the same body cam twice. John, I'm going to send you a link in a minute, because I know that I play it. There won't be any audio, but it's not there's no rush, and we can still do things without it.
I'm on the suspect. Move here now. I'm on the 6th and West.
The post-engagement discipline was out of this world on this one. So he obviously is shot. You could see the whites of his eyes if you look at that video. What happened immediately, though, is, again, that training kicked in and boom, let's get medical out here. There's already you can hear sirens coming from everywhere. It's a clinical demonstration of departmental training protocols. They were administering first aid to the victims. They still have to tend to the person that they just shot, because in any scenario, you go from trying to neutralize this threat to trying to save this guy. That's what cops do. And that's what you're obligated to do, in a sense, as long as he's not shooting at you. He's a citizen who's in need. So the guy was, I think, pronounced at the scene, but.
Officers approached the suspect, took him into custody, requested medical assistance. The suspect was later pronounced deceased at the scene. Our suspect is a 53-year-old male. The Austin Police Department has had no contacts with this suspect. His only interaction with law enforcement was in 2022, and that was a check welfare in an outside agency. This call was referenced his mental health. As this investigation has progressed, APD has learned of additional victims. APD is now aware of a total of 19 people that have been struck by gunfire. 3 people, including the suspect, were pronounced deceased at the scene.
So, John, I don't know if you know this or not. And before we get to the exciting footage of the guy, we need to go back a little bit. But there was
3 people.
The most 2026 problem in this scenario that you could possibly have. While they were trying to clear 6th Avenue, or while they were trying to get patients out of there, actually, there was a Waymo. I don't know if that was the company. So let me stop right there. There was an unmanned vehicle.
Driverless vehicle, right.
Yeah, driverless vehicle that transports people around. I don't know what the company was. I don't want to, put them on blast. Okay, so the thing is, when there's drivers behind the wheel of a car and they see lights behind them, they know what to do. They know to get out of the way. And I don't know if Waymo doesn't know this yet, or hasn't been programmed to do that, or if they're just kind of playing the percentages, but this thing didn't get out of the way. And so it kind of inhibited the rescue efforts. I don't know how long, but it's something to think about. And you can't, on one hand, knock these driverless autos or Uber or Lyft when we're, on the other hand, telling everybody don't drink and drive, let somebody else handle the wheel. Now, like, the driverless vehicle is kind of weird. I rode in one in San Francisco. They're actually kind of cool, but my family.
That's one step away from the Terminators. This is a problem that we are going to have to solve. At one point, as they become more and more popular, particularly in big cities like Austin. But the thing is that I don't think that this actually had a real outcome for the case. What's going to happen eventually is that we'll see someday that one of these driverless vehicles does have, it's reasonable to deduce that it did have some sort of measurable outcome in delaying responders from reaching somebody. And that will be a problem when we get there. I think the solution may be found pretty easily. I don't know how it is where you are, Drew, but police officers, or at least fire trucks, I don't know if the cops have this, but they have some sort of apparatus inside their unit with that when they approach a stoplight, it turns all the lights red, and you can sometimes see another light there blinking, and it lets you know that an emergency vehicle is coming, and everyone just sort of holds their horses. So if you could get one of these apparatuses on a fire truck that turns all the stoplights red so that they can go through the stoplight without having to contend with any oncoming traffic, I imagine at some point, when you flip on a siren on a police car or a fire truck, that'll send out some kind of signal for Waymos to get out of the way.
Yeah. So there's supposedly there's a traffic channel on. There's a guy that handles traffic signals on YouTube. This is how exciting I am, by the way. And I was watching a video of his one time, and he was talking about flashing lights. Like if you flash your lights, sometimes it picks up the strobe of the signal of the fire engines, not necessarily police cars, because they tend to travel at higher speeds, and they're a little bit easier to miss, I guess.
The firefighters are really just going somewhere to stage anyway.
Yeah, they're going. Well, they're going to buy the food for their meal. But yeah, that's a great point. And look, I played through the scenario in my mind. If I were the engine, if I were driving the fire engine, or if I had a cop car with a push bumper on it, the Waymo wouldn't be a problem. I mean,
if the vehicle's unoccupied, you can also just push it out of the way with a fire truck. That's a little bit harder for you to do with a police car.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I'm trying to get this sent over to you, John. So
all right, send it
look out
over.
for it.
What we're also looking at is some incredible footage. Missing from the briefing today was any footage of the gunman firing into the crowd, because, of course, that's too distressing and too distasteful. But we did capture video of him. That's sort of the reality of modern ring cams, but also just in a city like Austin, there's going to be cameras everywhere. We do see the suspect close up as he stalks, looking for more victims through the city, carrying his rifle. And seeing that is, of course, very scary, but it gives you, rather than just simply talking about it, we actually have the ability to know what some of these people who were in downtown Austin that night, we are able to see what some of them were seeing. And it's very terrifying, of course.
Man, 3 officers, 1 suspect, an AR-15. It's on West Avenue. And if the link works correctly, John will be able to pull up what it looks like, because it was really scary. I mean, to me, it looked like a crossfire situation, and it's quite possible that it wasn't. I mean, like, I don't know that it was, but do you have sound for that?
Hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. Right there to you, saying it's an AR-15. AR-15 down! Everybody down! 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 Where is he? Where? We don't know. Front 2 or 3 shots fired, 1 down. 6 on West Ave. Black lady, light sweater, light camo pants.
What I liked about that, John, first of all, was I'm with you. Hey, I'm with you. And you'll
something that they do in the tactical column. Even I did that as a correctional officer. As you're stacking up, you put the hand on the shoulder of the person behind you, so that that person knows that they can go and they have someone right there. It makes you feel a lot better, whether you're charging into a cell entry or you're walking towards a gunman, to know that somebody's got your back right there, literally.
Yeah, it's grounding, isn't it? Like, it kind of makes you feel better, like somebody's with me, or it makes, it gives you comfort to give someone else assurance that, like, hey, we're in this together. We're good. You know, like you're not going in there alone. I'm not going to let you do that. So that's where we're at so far with that. So this is where it gets kind of scary. This is video from a bystander, somebody in a parked car. Actually, it may have been a Tesla. It may have been just the car itself. But that's the suspect, just walking around. He had already transitioned to his AR-15.
You can see our suspect come into frame. He has
Terrifying.
the AR in his hand. And this is a pedestrian that was walking by.
I mean, like, they cut it, and of course I cut it because I don't, you know, there's no redeeming value in seeing that, but he hunted that kid down. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Like, it's disgusting. Like, he hunted him. You know, so for someone to go that way, I can't imagine how that family feels, or, you know,
This was a guy already known for his cruelty. He lost custody of his kids and had a bitter divorce. Not to dig up everything in his past, but why not? When you're a monster that takes out a rifle and downtown in a crowded area in Austin, when you on a Saturday night going into a Sunday morning, when you know people are there, and you've decided to pick up a weapon and you're going to lay out violence for other people. I have really no sympathy, anything else to say about the guy. So I'll call him for what he is. He was a monster, and it's a shame that there's people on this earth that are not walking around to this day because of him. And I'm just glad that he's gone. I would have liked to see some sort of justice, but for a guy like that who's stalking around with a rifle, we all know that there's only one way that that's going to end.
John has known me for a long time. I think a lot of you guys understand this about me too, that you know that I don't root for death, but at the same time, there are times where I might be comfortable with it.
This guy was, he just, it's important that we frame this as he chose this for himself.
Yeah.
Every day, every one of us has a decision when we wake up, and that's, what are we going to do today? This guy, Nandiaga Diagni, however you say his name, I guess I'm not too sorry if I say it wrong, but he chose to spend the evening helping little old ladies cross the street, go to the library, and he could have gone to bed at 8 p.m. like a man his age ought to have. Or he could have stayed up all night watching true crime and eating mint chocolate chip ice cream. But instead, he's downtown Austin with multiple firearms. And so for that, he punched his own ticket. Whether he's facing 72 virgins or 72 Virginians, whatever, he's gone, and he made that decision for himself. These law enforcement officers who had to roll up on the scene and probably feel a great deal of distress about having to run towards that. They probably can still hear the screaming and the echoes of the gunfire in their minds. And this guy on the ground, after having to take him out, they're traumatized by this. They would have preferred a peaceful Saturday night. However, this guy with the rifle decided that he was going to change everyone's agenda that night, from having a good time at the bar or having a good time sitting in your squad car watching YouTube videos to being the YouTube video.
Right.
So I have very little sympathy for him, Drew.
As do I. So you heard the chief a little while ago, 2022, there was some kind of check the welfare in a different state, I think in New York.
Yeah.
This is an ever expanding investigation. The FBI is already involved. There's some kind of terror link. We're just kind of nuts and bolts in it right now, but you know, the intelligence gap,
welfare check, and that his mental health status was a part of that welfare check. But here's the thing, that's not at all uncommon. And someone can have their welfare checked by a third party, by someone who's being vindictive. I already mentioned that this guy was divorced. It's possible that somebody called the police and said, hey, this guy's making these comments on Facebook, or he said this to me. And they send a police officer over to his house simply to harass him. I mean, welfare checks happen that way a lot. So if we're looking at this welfare check and we're talking about his mental health or his mental well-being or his absence of that, we don't have any information to back that up. And a lot of people will say, well, his mental well-being came under question before. Why weren't his firearms confiscated? There are laws in place for that, particularly in New York. However, we also have civil rights. The only person who has someone right to a firearm is a judge, not police officers.
Right.
And so it's totally premature to even be speculating about that. But the people who are going to jump on that right away are going to be framing this as though it could have been prevented. And I'll tell you right now that even if his rights to firearms had been taken away, it wouldn't stop him from laying his hands on a gun in Austin and deciding to go out and hurt people. That's the tragedy of it all, is that a lot of these things fundamentally are not preventable. And anyone that would do this to a person is not going to be stopped by the law. They're not going to be stopped by any preventative measures. We're talking about a person who's so different from you, viewer, that he picks up a gun and he doesn't care if there's old people. He doesn't care if there's children. He doesn't care. He's indiscriminately killing strangers, people having a good time in downtown Austin. There was no way for anyone to reasonably prevent this from happening.
So the district attorney's review is that the officer's actions officially were deemed life-saving. No charges are going to be filed. Apparently, the review is already closed. There was
hear that especially in a city like Austin, it's pretty much known for being the California of Texas. I mean, that's a typical reputation.
You're right.
For the district attorney to come out and say, like, these actions were heroic and we're not even going to be looking at this in the future, especially after we just spent the last 6 years not knowing if you're in an officer involved shooting, if those charges are going to come up against you at some point in the future. So I thought that was great to hear that from him right away.
And recognize the bravery of our officers. You saw that firsthand as they ran into danger to stop this. It is quite clear that they saved multiple lives. And also to the brave people that were around, giving direction on where this guy was. It was everybody was looking to identify him and to stop this threat. So I want to thank, again, the officers that engaged him, the officers that responded, that started putting tourniquets and rendering first aid immediately to victims. As you can see, this was a chaotic scene that was overwhelming for many. And the amazing thing is, when we look at all of these 911 calls, it's about calling as soon as possible. Anyone who sees something, hears something, please call 911 immediately.
The mode of investigation is the FBI's job. We're going to let them do that. We came here tonight to kind of break down the 911 call, the radio traffic, the body cam, and what 57 seconds actually looks like from inside the system. John, do you have any final thoughts or insights as
Just want to commend Austin PD for doing a great job. I know that they probably had units already downtown. The chief also mentioned that 6th Street is an area which they already spend a lot of their budget just doing things on 6th Street because it's where people go. And I just want to commend them for doing a great job, and not to go apples to oranges with someone else, but Bondi Beach was an example of how these situations can get radically out of control by having a police response that's anything less than immediate. That's not a criticism of anyone in New South Wales. It's just an example of how someone who has decided to harm other people with a gun, how that goes completely unchecked until their violence is conquered by just violence from a police officer.
In our early days, we did another call in Austin. It was another mental health type call where the shooters. I'm sorry? It
was like episode 3.
Yeah, where the shooter was having a mental health issue. So I think you can probably find that right between John or I. Thanks for being here. We appreciate all of you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. But you know what is free? Is just leaving us a comment. Tell us how horrible we are. Tell us how great we are. Do whatever. Just send us the hug emoji. Do something.
A compliment while Drew takes a criticism. That's fine with me too.
Yeah, you can beat up on me. I don't care.
All right, guys. We'll be back here next week. We'll be continuing to cover, possibly in the meantime, going forward with the Corey Richards case. It's something that's happening in progress. We didn't forget about that. We're going to be coming back to talk about everything that's going on with that. The failed attempt on Eric Richards' life, the bologna sandwich, as I like to call it. We'll be picking up on that soon. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, keep up with the Comm Center. Drew, 1,000 episodes,
10,000 episodes.
Comm Center.
Of
Comm Center.